Vocational Rehabilitation Counselor. If you're watching this because you're interested in potentially becoming one, or you are just curious about what is it that a vocational rehabilitation counselor does, keep watching this video till the end so you know 4 steps you can take to know all that you want to know about it and decide if it is for you or not. If you want to find and nurture your ideal occupation or business niche, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you know whenever a new video comes out. Also, if you find that you like this video, remember to hit the like button and share it with your friends. This takes us to step 1, and that is, what is a vocational rehabilitation counselor and what is it that they do? So basically, the work of a rehabilitation counselor is to make sure or help their clients who have disabilities gain good employment for themselves. So basically, you're working with people who have all kinds of disabilities. Disabilities that could be mental, physical, psychological. You could have people who have issues with their speech, issues with their movement. You may have people who may have suffered a physical injury. They maybe lost a limb. Maybe they were in the military and they came back. You may have people with post-traumatic stress disorder. You may have people with conditions like schizophrenia or Asperger's syndrome, and all kinds of potential discapacities or disabilities. And basically, your work as a rehabilitation counselor is to help them get employment that they wouldn't normally be able to get necessarily, or that they may be having issues to, maybe potentially because of their disabilities. So essentially, that's your job. So now that you know the basics of what is it that a vocational rehabilitation counselor does, then you're probably wondering, as most people do, like, oh, how much will I get paid if I do this? Well, we're gonna get into this now. That's step 2, and that's knowing how much you're getting paid and where you get work, right? So essentially, this varies, but according to the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the U.S., the average pay for these kinds of counselors is around 34 or 35K per year, which is not that much, you're probably wondering. But according to pay scale, those kinds of professionals can make $47,000 a year. Now, this varies depending on where they are working. If they're working at schools, hospitals, clinics, or if they have their own private clinics, which is something that they can also have. Now, those that have private clinics are very good at attracting clients and retaining them, can make up to the 70,000s. So that's something that can be seen in the upper side of the income distribution. People who have private practices can potentially make more, but that's not all of the people who have the private practices, if that makes sense. It's also important to mention here that the difference in that pay between the 30s and the 50Ks may also be due to another reason, and that's that in some cases you can put together rehabilitation counselors with just plain career or vocational counselors who also work with people who do not have disabilities and could potentially work in schools helping people decide what kind of majors they're going to have. So in that sense, the 50K that we mentioned before, 47, 50, 55K, tends to be more on the side of people who work at schools, people who work with people that don't necessarily have disabilities. And this differential in the amount of money that you're making may be, and this is me posting this, because the latter, the ones that are working at schools, they may be working with a higher number of clients because they don't necessarily have to go with people who have disabilities. Since you're working with more clients and you're spending more time working throughout the year, then you're making more money than those who spend less time working with people. Now, this is just, I'm positing this, that's not necessarily true, but it may be true to an extent. So make sure that you know that you're self-aware enough to know whether you really want to work with people who have disabilities or you just want to help people in general potentially get jobs that are good for them. Also knowing that if you're good at business and potentially setting up your own private practice, you could potentially make much more than almost triple, right? Than those who are just working at a hospital with whoever comes by. Comment below if this makes sense so far and whether or not you're thinking that this is something that might work for you or you're just not interested at all. This takes us to part 3, and that is knowing the requirements of actually being able to do the work. Now, for the kind of pays that we already mentioned, you actually, before you can do the work, you need 3 main elements. You need to have a bachelor's degree, preferably in something along the lines of psychology or counseling. And then you also need a master's degree, potentially in the same fields, so that you can actually work as a vocational rehabilitation counselor. Now, that's not enough. Beyond having the bachelor's and the master's degrees, and that's 6 years of study, you also need to get potentially a license depending on your state, especially if you're setting up a private practice. But regardless of where you are working, whether you're doing it at a hospital or working it at a private practice yourself, you will need to have about 600 hours of clinical experience supervised by another rehabilitation counselor while you're working with patients before you can actually get the approval to do things yourself. So now in this part 4, we actually have to decide, do you think this is something that's worthwhile for you? While it may not potentially be as lucrative as some other careers, if you decide to do it by yourself through a private practice or something along those lines, you can potentially make good money for yourself as well. And regardless of that, maybe you're not here for the money, maybe you're the kind of person who just wants to be fulfilled and happy, and you feel that making maybe 50K or 40K could be okay for you if you're doing something you enjoy. And this can potentially be very fulfilling type of work if you are a person who tends to be more of a counselor or a therapist. So among the type of work that you'll have to do, you'll have to do the diagnostic on the kind of disabilities that your client has. Like, is it a combination of disabilities that's not allowing them to potentially get employed? Is it just one specific disability that's making it very hard depending on what the client wants to work in? You'll have to diagnose what are some of the client's preferences, needs, strengths, like the kind of jobs in which they could do a good work product and be actually fulfilled and happy in. Then you'll have to create a plan for how to actually get the client into a position, and then you'll have to actually see the plan through by holding the client accountable and by evaluating, making an evaluation of how well are things going with regards to the plan, are things working out when we make applications, are they not, and then changing the plan in order to get the results that you want your clients to have. In other words, you get to see your clients improve and get positive results. Obviously, you'll have bad clients as well if you take them on that may not be willing to change or get anything or do any work in order to get what they want. So that could be frustrating if you accept clients like those, or if you're working for a public institution and you have to. And that's one of the things that may not be as good, but the positive can potentially outweigh the negatives. Another thing that I like to mention here is that you can also specialize as a vocational rehabilitation counselor. You don't necessarily have to work with all kinds of disabilities, because you have as many disabilities as people exist probably. And you may want to actually specialize on a disability that makes sense to you. I don't know. Maybe you have someone in your family who has a specific disability and that has inspired you to want to help people with those disabilities. Maybe you can be an expert in helping people with that specific disability gain good employment for themselves. And that is something that's very noble, something that can be very fulfilling. And if you specialize, if you haven't, I'll put here our video on career specialization or career specialism. You will actually be able to position yourself better and potentially make even more money doing something that you like, adding even more value to people in a very specific niche. So now you know 4 important aspects of what a vocational rehabilitation counselor is, how much they make, where they work, and also whether or not this can be for you or not. If you like this video, remember to hit the like button below, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know whenever a new video comes out, and also share it with your friends. Also remember that if you have any comment of any sort, if you feel that you want to give any feedback, something that you didn't like, something that you did like, it doesn't matter, comment below and we'll answer those.